Thank you for joining this webinar. This is something that I do on a weekly basis, and I try to cover topics that are more practical than showing new tools and the shiny objects and stuff like that. So today, what I want to talk about is AI literacy as leverage and how to, if you have a team of people or a work group that you work with, how you can leverage the power of AI by working with each other and sharing the AI infrastructure that you may be wanting to implement. And before you get into any of that transformation, before you get there, you have to understand what your business is and what you want AI to accomplish, or automation for that. Any technology that you want to utilize to improve your business, improve your life, improve whatever you're doing, you really need to understand what you want to do first. Literacy as leverage is how you think with your teams. It isn't about replacing people, and you often hear that. A lot of the trends are like, oh, AI is going to take my job, and there's so many negative implications about it that they think that instead of learning AI and how it works with your business, they are more fearful of it. And so it's not about AI replacing people, it's replacing people who don't want to know about AI, because it's kind of inevitable. It's creeping into society at every level, and the more you understand what AI is and how to use it, it's just going to make your experience with it better. It's going to make your life better. It's going to make your work better. So when you do it as teams, and this is something that's really interesting in my mind, something that just was announced over the last few days. I can't remember where, but OpenAI, who makes ChatGPT, is right now experimenting in Asia. I think it's in Korea, Japan, and maybe some parts of Indonesia, that they're testing out group chat. And so instead of sharing a chat that you may have recorded and said, hey, this works really great, but now they're going to allow groups to interactively work with chats, which is just a whole new level of control and how you want to utilize it. But that is going to be one of the next steps in prompting, is now instead of you writing a prompt and sharing it with somebody, you can actually coactively work with the chats. And so that's something that's yet to be seen. It's in Asia right now, going to be in the US and Europe pretty soon. But in the meantime, today what I want to talk about is sharing your AI vocabulary, thinking about strategic prompting, building internal playbooks, which is something that a lot of people don't really consider. Maybe you have, but it's a lot of AI use right now is jumping into ChatGPT or Claude or some other tool and just randomly writing prompts. You may have structure to your prompts. You may not get kind of different results. The more structured you are, the better results. But anyway, there's no consistency. And then the maturity assessment to actually, if you're in a business with multiple employees, to actually understand what the capabilities are everywhere and include everybody in the process so they don't feel threatened by the technology, that they feel like they're helping to implement it. So no fluff, just actionable strategies to move forward with. And again, I focus on AI, but this could be automation without AI. It could be just a technology in general, but AI is the thing nowadays. So inconsistency is one of the main things. It's not who prompts best. It's what results you come up with that help your business or your personal life, however you want to deal with it. So most adoption, they don't fail because the technology doesn't work. It's because they use it inconsistently. There's different styles, different rules. If you heard any of the reports from earlier this year that we're talking about when major corporations or big businesses tried to implement AI, they were getting like 70, 80% failure rates. And they were all coming down to mainly not understanding what they really wanted to accomplish. The stakeholders were sold on a hyped up proposition rather than the reality of what it's actually going to do. They weren't involving their employees to be part of the process, and they didn't understand the long-term financial impacts of how this technology needs to be maintained. There's the usage, there's the maintaining of the libraries, your prompts that are embedded into your workflow processes. There's a lot of things that are completely brushed over because they hype it up like AI is the best things ever. It's going to make your business better. And so there's a lot of frustration, skepticism, and a lot of people abandon their initiatives because they don't see the ROI. And that's another thing, that they don't know what to measure to see if there is an ROI. And so there's all of these little inconsistencies that they believe the hype, AI is going to be wonderful, but they don't understand the overall impact. So system literacy is really important. It's not tool mastery. It's just not memorizing how to write a prompt or becoming the best prompt engineer. It's realizing you have your workflow, and the more you understand what your workflow is and how you can document that, it's easier to implement some automation or AI to improve that process. But if you don't know your process, if it's not documented, you're just taking garbage in and garbage out. And so the more you can understand how your business actually works from a foundational sense, the easier it is to implement tools like AI, or if you're doing automation, something like Make or Zapier or N8N or one of the other platforms, some of the agent tools that are coming out that really are good tools, but if you don't understand what you're trying to automate, you just go in a lot of different directions. And so also platform agnostic thinking that you can only use one platform, ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or OpenAI, whatever. There's so many different tools. They've all been trained in different ways. So you look at Meta's Llama, that was trained a lot on social media stuff with AIs, the information that they had from Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp. You look at ChatGPT, which is a very generalized, very well informed. I use it for probably 70–80% of my work. Claude, I think, is really good with critical writing and code maintenance. Gemini is Google is going to eventually take over. If you see what Google has been releasing in the wild and then the adaptation of their tools, Google is definitely going to be much more prominent in the world of AI than they currently are. ChatGPT, OpenAI is still up at the top. Anthropic is doing a lot of advertising and they're getting more people aware of their platform. But Google, just because of Google, is going to be taking over a lot of different things. They have a lot of really great tools and they're kind of seeping them into the environment. And then collaborative intelligence is where you get everybody on your team to understand how to use it to understand or figure out or improve your business's processes. So you're not just getting these individual ideas that are popping up here and there, and in certain areas they work really well, but if you get everybody on the team to think in the same ideas and share their prompting, it just is a general improvement overall. So shared languages create compound returns. Next, so here is what I consider the AI literacy ladder, and talking about earlier, there's these different levels. So the first is awareness, which is probably about, it's probably getting lower. 70% of the people, they understand what AI can do, they get a tool, and they start using it, and they don't understand really how to use it. They don't really like the results, and they think that it's not for them. And so they're believing in the hype, but not understanding how to really use it. I don't know if you worked with Excel or Word when it first came out, you know, the basic office tools. But if you don't understand numbers, You can have a spreadsheet, but if you don't know how to do a formula, it really doesn't make a difference. It's a spreadsheet. Same with word processing. If you don't understand how to do your titles and headers and footers and things like that, it's just another document. But the more you understand the base concept, the better it is, and that's the same with AI. Next is competence, is to get into the effective tool usage and how to use it not only safely but efficiently. And that's where with competence you start understanding frameworks, the frameworks of prompting and how to get the best results. So usage, using it, sharing the ideas, bringing it into your business, understanding what problems are there and how to effectively use it, efficiently use it with a tool like AI or automation. Next is the getting into integration, where you start looking at your workflows. The more you understand what your workflow is, and your workflow could be customer intake. When you get a customer, you have to contact them, get them interested in your product. They may send you a form or schedule an appointment. After that appointment, how do you follow up with them after the follow-up? Is there additional proposals that you have to send out or follow-up communications? After that, do they purchase? When they purchase, do they get into the next step? And so if you understand the entire workflow of this process, then you can take the individual pieces and start to align AI with the different processes and see where it may or may not be effective. And that's where you start talking about the return on your investment is if you don't know what you're measuring. So when you first start looking at bringing in automation or AI into a business and you look at a workflow, you have to understand, okay, right now it's taking 2 hours of manual work followed by an hour of computer work followed by this much time and this much time, and it's costing us at an hourly rate of $600 to deal with this. But if I bring in a tool that can do that same work in an hour and the tool is costing $20, that's $20 over $600. You know, you can start to see a return on your investment, but you have to know what you're measuring before you can see that return. And the final thing is the governance, which is where a lot of businesses, probably only 10 or so percent are dealing with right now, is in the ethical evaluation of how is the quality? How are you guardrailing? How are you controlling what you're putting in? Is it private, personal, customer related? It's really important, valuable information that you may not or may not want AI to know about. So adding that level of compliance, guardrails, consistency on top of everything is normally where a lot of the businesses tended to fail earlier in this year. And so, as the benchmark insight shows, that most SMBs should go for competence and awareness right now. And then when you get your whole team involved and understand your entire workflow process and you have your standard operating procedures documented, then you get into the integration and finally into the governance, which most businesses aren't even close to being near understanding their governance. Next. So, here's where the past has shown is where teams get stuck trying to implement automation or AI into their business. They treat it as an experiment and they'll test different tools. They may not even know how many tools they have licenses for because they're so inexpensive. It's like 11 labs, here's $7 a month, or here's OpenAI for $20 a month, and here's another one for $18 a month. And suddenly it's like, oh yeah, that's only $10, or that's only that. But then you start looking at it, it's like, wow, I have 12 tools and I'm paying $300 a month. Am I getting anything out of that? And so that's where you get these side project traps of, oh, I want to try this new thing. And then there's no guidelines set. And so if you're in a business by yourself, you can set your own guidelines. But if you're in a larger business with multiple employees, you have to set guidelines of what's allowed, what's prohibited, where you review, who's involved. And again, this is something that a lot of businesses don't understand, is that AI is not going to replace the humans. The human factor has to be involved. You have to have human oversight because AI is only based on what it's been trained upon. It doesn't have human experience, it doesn't have human emotion, it doesn't have the human context. And you always have to have human oversight at this point, probably for the next few years. But anyway, right now, human oversight is a necessity. AIs have been known to hallucinate. They're very confident when they don't know something, and they can come up with these ideas, and they sound very, very confident in their ideas. But once you talk to them or communicate with them and say that, are you really sure about that? Or can you give me any proof that this is true? Then they start to vacillate and give you different answers. And so never accept what their first result is going to be. Always question their results. Quality control is another thing. With no frameworks, you're not evaluating your outputs. You're not knowing what you're trying to get a return on your investment. It could damage your reputation if you're not having that human oversight. You're using it for social, or you're using it for an email or some PR, and you're not checking. It may be making up things about your business that aren't true, and that could ruin your brand reputation. And then there's blind spots of no tracking. Again, it goes to ROI. What are you trying to improve, and can you show the numbers to prove that this new tool is going to save you money and improve your efficiency? So, 3 building blocks. Number 1 is a shared framework. So I often, if you've been to any of my previous webinars, talk about craft and create. And those are just acronyms that I've created to talk about different methodologies that you can use, or frameworks for your prompting. For example, craft is context, roles, who your audience is, what kind of format and what tone do you want to use. Create is very similar, but they all come down to the very basic things. It's what is the context? What is the role you want AI to assume? Who is your audience going to be? What tone do you want to get out? What extra things can you give it? Do you have examples? Do you have anything else that you can make that prompt better? But if you approach prompting with a framework, you're definitely going to get better results. The next is to start with structured experiments. And so again, just bringing in ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or one of the other large language models into your environment, and just start testing what it can do, but then start with smaller projects and say, okay, I want to create a new email correspondence, or I want to create a new social media campaign, or I want to go out and come up with some new idea, project, process, platform, whatever. Start small and then build upon it through systematic testing. And the best thing is document what you're doing and figure out what works and what doesn't, instead of trying to reiterate failures or circumvent something that may have worked and you didn't document it. And so documentation is huge, and that's what you have to do before you can even bring in any ideas of automation. You have to understand what your policies are and how things work before you can automate them. Next, shared frameworks. Talk about craft, as I said, context, roles, audience, format, tone. If you get consistency in your prompting, the results are just going to be more consistent in the same manner. And so before, write me a social post. And that's pretty generic. But if you say, write me a Facebook post to a Gen Z audience about this product that I'm releasing, and make it in a jovial format that brings lots of links, or the more information that you give a prompt, it's not about being rigid, it's just the structure. Now, you can still be very creative, but as long as you remember mainly context, roles, and audience, adding any of the other things, the extras, the formats, the tones, they're just going to make it better. But context, roles, and audience, those are really some of the main things that you have to consider when you're building your prompting. So if you have a structured framework that you decide this is what we're going to use consistently, everybody knows it, you're training your people on that, you get consistency across the departments, it's easier to troubleshoot, you get scalable knowledge because everybody's working on the same level and they're learning from each other. And so again, instead of saying AI is going to replace an employee, you encourage your employees by getting them all on the same page. Just general, everything works better when the humans are involved. So learn by doing. So start with a workflow. Don't try to transform everything. Say that you just want to do social media. You have somebody who may be creating images, somebody who may be creating text, somebody who may be scheduling, somebody who may be doing the analytics of how the responses are coming in. So focus on one individual item, one workflow, and figure out, will AI or automation help this? And if so, try it by step and document along it. Do it in 30-day experiments. Saying, we're going to start here. We've been doing this now for 3 months, and now we're going to start with AI, and here's the steps we're going to take, and we will then know how to evaluate what the return on investment is going to be. You can measure your hours saved, the quality of the output, the return on your customer engagement, how your team's confidence levels. There's a lot of different measurements that you can track, but you have to know what you want to track. And then scaling it out, once things may work, then you can start to scale, grow it, bring it to other teams, bring it to other workflows. So it's small experiments that turn into results that can be expanded into your organization. It's just it's not a project, it's small experiments that can be integrated into your organization once everybody understands how it's working. So it creates data-driven confidence. You're not eliminating employees, you're involving everybody, and you're doing controlled tests to understand how you can get a better return. It's not a shiny object anymore. It's a tool that you're implementing to improve your processes. So what I want to do now, normally in these webinars that I do, they tend to be about 50% demo and 50% lecture. This one is mostly lecture because when you're talking about stuff like this, there's not a lot to demonstrate, but I will dive into showing you some of these shared resources that I'll provide after this. But the first thing is to put together a playbook. And by a playbook, whatever tools you're using, whether you're using Google Docs or Microsoft OpenDrive or Dropbox or Notion or Slack, there should be a central repository of where you're storing this information. And it becomes a living document because AI changes daily. And if you don't update your documentation to keep up to date with what the best practices are, they can be outdated. And so what you want to do is create some structure. I'm going to show you just a simple Google Drive format that I use here. You have 3 different subdirectories or subfolders for frameworks, policies, and your prompts. If you have a prompt library within your organization, it just makes things easier. Sharing prompts, I think that was last week's session that I did, which you can see on the YouTube library, is that I talked about how to build from a simple prompt to a templated prompt to a GPT, an automated prompt, to writing custom applications. And so the more that you can share, document, and plan these playbooks and people start using the same formats, you're just going to be more effective and more efficient. Next is to add your content. And again, building your frameworks with your prompts. Use the 3-rule policy, which I'll be talking about in a second, and use reusable templates. Then involve everybody, share with the team, give them access to things, ask for input. If you have a 30-minute meeting once a week to show what people have done, make sure that everything is up to speed and everybody's working from the same concept. So let's apply what we've learned here. Identify your opportunities. Find a simple task that you may want to automate or use AI on. Document your existing process. see why you think AI is going to work, and then document the results. Pick a low risk workflow that you can experiment with the next 30 days. Get everybody involved. Define what your success is. What do you want to measure? How often you're going to measure it? And who's going to be in control? One thing that is not very well documented in the whole AI is that, in the world of AI and implementing it, is that some businesses, depending on the size, you're going to need an AI hero or somebody who's going to be your go-to, the person who will help organize all the documentation and be your AI guru, whatever. But you should probably have an AI hero on your team. If that's you, there's a lot to keep up with, but prompting trends and just a general direction of the technology is going to be very important for that one person to keep up to speed. AI literacy. So the return on investment. Here is where, if you know what you're tracking, you can start to see that realistically you can get 20, 40, even bigger gains on efficiency just on the time it's saved on, say, social media, for example. You have a copywriter, you have an image creator, you have a video creator, you have a scheduler. If you can automate that or use AI and suddenly it goes from 10 hours to 2 hours, that's a huge savings of time. But if you don't document it, you don't understand what the results are going to be. Rework reduction, again, finding errors and reducing revisions is just going to increase how quickly you can have results presented. People are going to become more comfortable with the levels and your confidence is going to increase. Getting them involved, the resistance to using AI is going to drop. And so as long as you know what you're measuring, there are very easy ways to see what your return on investment is, because some of these tools, unless you are purchasing 10 or 15 of them, they're relatively inexpensive until you get into the major transformational updating your CRM to have AI efficiency and bringing in voice agents and all that kind of stuff. There's just so many things that you could do, and every time you add something to that, there's just so many places where you're going to stop understanding where your return is going to be and what you're really trying to fix by implementing these things. And so try to avoid the hype of what the salespeople are selling. Right now, AI is still probably 70% hype. There's probably thousands of tools released every single day. If you go to, there's an AI for this.com, which there's a website, that you can see that there's just all of these tools constantly being released. But then you look at the long term, 80% of them are out of business in a few months because nobody wants the tool. They're creating tools because they're shiny objects and they're not solving problems. And so look at what you really want to accomplish and figure out what your return on investments is going to be. So measure what you think you're replacing or improving. Building your program, start with awareness. Where are your capabilities? What does people know? What is your vision? Is everybody aligned? Next is to work on the framework. Get everybody on the same team level. Use a format, whatever format or framework that you're using, whatever methodology. Make sure that everybody on your team is using that same idea. Start with projects and programs that are small with measurable results. Make sure to involve everybody on the team with that. Next is to start documenting and building your libraries and building your playbooks. Make it accessible, give everybody access to it, because there's a lot of things that are not super proprietary that you want everybody on your team to understand. Next is to measure and review. And again, if you understand what you're trying to accomplish, you know your process well enough, and you should be able to measure what your returns are going to be. Integrate assessment at first. When you hire new people, understand what their levels are. how you're going to review them, and if AI, which it should be now a competency. It used to be that you do Microsoft Office. Do you know Excel? Do you know Word? Something like that. Now it's going to be, do you know OpenAI? Do you know ChatGPT? Do you know how to prompt? That's now going to be a core competency, no matter what. The more people understand that that's going to be a requirement, the less threatened they're going to be, and the more involved they're going to want to be. So going from curiosity to competence, again, start with the foundation, get everybody aware, get your framework training down, share your vocabulary, the prompting methods, the boundaries, get validation, make sure that you're getting return on investment, that you know what to look for, and document, document, document. Make sure that everybody understands where to find the information and who's in charge of updating that information and how you're getting it out to your team. Again, like I say, 30 minutes a week, 30 minutes a month would be a great team learning experience of where we are in this automation or AI world. So the goal isn't to have one expert, it's to have a team that thinks as a system. So develop your policies, come up with a strategy of what you're implementing and why you're implementing it and how to measure it, and have that internal champion, your AI guru, who knows what direction you want to go and drive that adaptation. So what I'm going to give you is the playbook, as I mentioned. This is the link that you can get to. And then if I have a little 20 question assessment here that you can have access to, that just, if I go to that, this is just a simple assessment that you can start what's working in your business, what your challenges are, what confuses you, and then go on to 20 questions about how well do you know your processes, how well do you know your systems, how well do you know your team's knowledge, how do you know the financial implications and things like that. And so that is an assessment, free self-assessment that you can take to see where you may need to focus your attention on training people. That's just next week. I think I missed something here. Oh, here. Yeah, I did. I passed it by. Here's your policy framework, talking about clarity without bureaucracy. Simple little 3-rule policy to create clarity. So specify what you're going to allow. Where are you going to allow AI to be used in your business? Is it going to be for market research? Are you just going to be drafting memos? Are you going to be drafting customer communications? Just creating meeting summaries? Idea generation. So that should be your basic for what's allowed. But then what's not allowed, you should definitely document. Don't put any contract information. Don't put any customer information. No financials, no health information, no product releases, sensitive employee information. Ban that stuff and let people know that there could be implications for releasing any of this into the world of AI, because AI, you don't know where it really is, and there's a lot of interesting agentic attacks that are happening right now. And so definitely specify what's allowed, what's not, and then what needs review. And this is where your AI champion comes in, is should everything be reviewed before being sent to a client, being put onto your website, into your advertising, into your proposals? You need to have somebody to be able to have that human review. Again, social media, everything like that. And so you can adopt quickly, but you have to be able to set your rules and guidelines. And so going back into this page here, so on this Google Drive that I'm going to share, not only will you get this presentation with all the links, but I just created a general policy framework here, which is basically what I just went over. Set what is going to be allowed, what's going to be prohibited, and what will require review. Document that, make sure everybody understands what that is going to be. In the AI library, which you'll have access to here, is where you create, now this could be again in the Google Drive, it could be your Microsoft OneDrive, it could be Dropbox, it could be Notion, it could be Slack. Wherever you have your documentation centered, you want to create policies. Here is a generic AI usage policy. At our company, we embrace AI. How are we going to use it for content generation, for solutions, for ethical practices? Document how you want AI to be used in your organization and put this as a page on your website so your clients understand how you are using AI within your environment. The next step is to look at frameworks. For frameworks, I have a few different frameworks that are just, again, they're all different acronyms. They all basically say the same thing, but create context, results, explanation, audience, tone, expand upon it, context, roles, audience, format, tone, actions, purpose, expectations. So whatever acronym sticks with you, they all pretty much go to the same things. It's like, what is the context? What are we trying to do? What is the input? What kind of tone? What do we expect? And so whatever framework works for you, use it. And then the create framework, I believe, is just a little visual of that. The last thing is in the prompts. I have a collection of prompts that I keep in Notion. I'm sharing this with you all here, and this is let's go into that. So on the shared Notion, here are just a bunch of prompts for giving you an idea of what you can do. These are some pretty in-depth prompts. Say a life operating system architect. I mean, these are some pretty interesting prompts to give you a really good idea of how in-depth you can make your prompting. And these are all cut and paste. You can put them into your ChatGPT, your Claude, whatever. But this is a great collection of just ideas for what you can do with prompting. And so on that, going back, I think that covers everything. This is a weekly webinar that I do Tuesdays, 3 o'clock Eastern, different topics. Next week, I'm right now going to talk about beyond the hype, how to move in towards more implementation rather than just the conceptual stuff I've talked about now. I may go back to more prompting ideas. It depends on what the mood of the industry is, because as you're aware, it changes weekly, it changes daily, and so there may be some new things to come up with. But on that, I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to stop the recording and see if there's